You can save babies together at a big event at the IMAX Theater today at 4:30. What is it? You'll find out coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Myrtle Beach Herald. We're focused on the 2005 Horry County Walk America. And we're visiting with Kathy Douglas, the Associate State Director of the March of Dimes. Good morning, Kathy.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for coming in. It's so exciting to think, A, the Walk America is coming up on April 30th. But B, and even probably more exciting, is tonight's event at IMAX at 4:30, the big kickoff.
Absolutely. We're expecting about 150 people and many of our corporate partners, and we're inviting everyone to come out and hear more about Walk America and the March of Dimes.
Oh yeah, and of course a setting like the IMAX Theater, an incredible place like that. Dennis Wade was with us last Friday helping pump up tonight's event. Obviously John Baker here yesterday. So thrilling hearing about some of the things going on all over the state. Obviously the 50-year anniversary of the Salk vaccine, and hearing him talk about that yesterday. It is amazing to think of the impact the March of Dimes has had on so many for so long and continues to have.
Absolutely. You know, it's amazing that we're one of the few organizations, actually one of the only organizations that has conquered what it set out to do, and that is polio. And since that time, we've changed our focus, and now we're trying to make sure that babies are born into this world healthy.
You know, golly, I'm trying to remember who was with us. I guess it was Joe Fisher or maybe Colleen Shanley earlier, the middle part of last year, talking about premature births. And of course, every time they come in, have brought in some amazing props, whether it's the ring off of a finger that would slide all the way up to the shoulder, or of course just a normal sized diaper for a child at 3 months versus the diaper on a child who's born prematurely and has attained 3 months. It is amazing to see some of the props that are truly affecting.
Absolutely, and it's so easy to talk about numbers. You know, 149 babies this week will be born prematurely, but the devastation that those families feel in a week, and you know, unless you've witnessed it or been around it, it's hard to believe how many families in our state have to deal with that. I know personally, my sister is 31 weeks pregnant right now and went into preterm labor just several weeks ago. Fortunately, they were able to stop it, but it's so hard and scary when a pregnancy is supposed to be a joyous time in a woman's life and a family's life and the grandparents' life, and when sometimes that's not quite so perfect and we don't know why. It's a good thing to get up every day and really get yourself revved up to raise money to find the reasons why babies are born prematurely so that families don't have to go through that devastation.
No doubt. Those are great words, Kathy. Real quick about yourself, though. Are you originally from the area?
I'm from the upstate, Anderson, South Carolina.
Oh, really? Great. And you're living in Charleston now?
I live in Charleston, yes, with my husband and my 3-year-old.
Oh, and you obviously got up real early this morning to come up to help pump up tonight's event, and Joe Fisher and all the volunteers that'll be out. What got you into the March of Dimes, Kathy?
Oh, it's a long story. I started at USC, University of South Carolina, and started doing some politics and found that I really had a niche in fundraising and volunteer, and then decided that instead of doing it for political candidates, I wanted to do it for a nonprofit. So started working for the March of Dimes in the upstate years ago, and have been doing this for about 16 years now. 16
years?
I know. I started very young.
Yeah, you started very young. That's right. You're talking about in college. It doesn't sound like those numbers work.
No, I've been doing it for quite a while.
That's great. And of course, you know, obviously, having seen a little bit about and seen some of the experiences, the groups you've helped out in Charleston as well, both the March of Dimes early on. I think I saw it with a statewide foundation, and then having been with some other groups, and then coming back to the March of Dimes, you've really found the ability to continue to maintain relationships through a lot of groups statewide.
I enjoy that part of it, especially when you can be a part of an organization that's fiscally sound and does what it says it's going to do, and what better thing to raise money for than helping babies in our area.
You know, Walk America's, of course, in this area, the division, the PD division, I think has walks in Dillon, obviously up in Marlborough County, in Loris, and in Georgetown. They go on, Lake City, and surely the Florence area, and then Horry County's event here on April 30th. Well, what's the history behind Walk America? When did it kick off, and has it had other names in the past? I think I saw, or maybe in talking to John yesterday, in his early experiences, there was a super walk in Columbia. I don't know if that was a a precursor or a predecessor to Walk Americas, but have these been around for a long time?
They have, and actually the March of Dimes Walk America is the oldest and the biggest Walk America in the country. We've been doing this, gosh, over 75 years now, and it used to be the Super Walk where people would walk, gosh, 40, 50 miles, and now we do about 5. We do 5 miles. And we'll be doing it this year, as you said, April 30th at the Pavilion.
Yeah, of course. Now, obviously you're not up here all the time, Kathy, and so visiting different Walk Americas around the state, are there some aspects that all walks share and some components maybe that are individualized statewide? Let's say in the upstate there's something different, like the ambassador babies. I think when Dennis was in, he brought in some of the pictures of one of the local ambassador babies, Luke Parrott. When you think about aspects like that, maybe you can share with the viewers a little about the background of the ambassador babies? Sure.
Well, to answer your first question, every community in South Carolina is very unique, and obviously Horry County, under the leadership of Joe Fisher and Colleen Shanley, have done a tremendous job with the help of our dedicated volunteers such as yourself in making this one of the most successful walks in the state. And I think the reason that Horry County is so successful is because that staff and those volunteers do a great job of sharing the mission, and what better way to do that than with our ambassador families who have been touched by prematurity or birth defects and can really talk the message of what we're trying to do.
How do y'all go about deciding an ambassador baby for any of the walks? How do you decide who will be the ambassador baby?
Typically we get, I know here in Horry County, I think they're lined up to do it because it's such a successful community for the March of Dimes. We have people that call in, or maybe we've heard of a personal story, or we know of someone that has that personal story, and we go and talk with them. And obviously an ambassador family is very important. They do speaking engagements, and they help us recruit more companies. They help us recruit family teams. So there's a lot of responsibility for an ambassador family, and they are very important to the organization's success.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. How about your position as Associate State Director, Kathy? What exactly is that position to do? You're traveling around the state, or are you working almost exclusively out of Charleston?
I joke that I'm just the head box carrier, but really part of my job is to make sure that our fundraising goals and objectives are being met, and that we're meeting benchmarks, and that we're all on the same page, and that we're representing the March of Dimes and Walk America in a consistent manner. I'm also in charge of statewide teams. We have major sponsors and major teams like Walk America, Bank of America. Many of our larger corporations are involved in Walk, and so part of my job is to make sure that we are delivering a consistent message to those teams, and that it even is filtering down into our communities throughout the state.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So traveling around, is there a common date oftentimes that the March of Dimes focus on for Walk America, or
There is a National Walk America date that is April the 30th, but we do throughout the state have walks a few weekends before that and a few weekends after that as well. But most of our walk sites are on April 30th.
Okay, and of course that aspect of traveling around, maybe you could share with viewers a little bit about the background of the March of Dimes. I know oftentimes we'll jump into some of the aspects, the events that are going on through the year, the chef's auction. We've had a series of guests related to the chef's auction here locally. Of course, I guess those are going on around the state. Some of the other events that the March of Dimes putting on either here or in the upstate or in the Midlands. What are some of the other events? But before that, just a little bit about the background of the March of Dimes.
Well, the March of Dimes was started to eradicate polio, and we did that. And actually our name came from Eddie Cantor, who he encouraged everyone to send in dimes, and we became known as the March of Dimes. And so we started with Walk Americas. The unique thing about the March of Dimes is it's really a grassroots organization, and has been and always will be, and I think that's the strength, as it's our volunteers. It's very grassroots. Mm-hmm. And as we've evolved, our mission, as I mentioned earlier, has changed from polio to eliminating birth defects and infant mortality. Mm-hmm. And from an event standpoint, we do Walk America during that April time frame, and then we do chef's auctions typically in the fall. And we also have a real estate event where we honor a real estate developer in a community here in Myrtle Beach and Columbia, Charleston, and Greenville, and those events have been very successful for our organization. And then some communities do a Wonder Walk, which is a special Walk America for children. And so those are primarily our signature events that we focus our energies and times on.
Right, right. Having just returned to the March of Dimes about 15 months ago, Kathy, you've been able to experience a heck of a lot of walks statewide, or been out to a number of the walk sites. Maybe for some viewers who haven't been to a walk, aren't familiar with what's happening on April 30th. Of course, tonight's event, the event at IMAX, kicking off at 4:30. I think they've got Coach David Bennett locally, the football coach, out to give a motivational pep talk. There's also a video going, and of course, some of the power of the team captains that can tell their own stories about wrap-around events to really help make the walk successful. But when you think about, just give them a sense of what a typical walk's like if a viewer hadn't even heard of Walk America or hadn't been to a walk in the past. A typical walk, whether it's in Charleston or Anderson or any other walk you may have attended, how it kicks off and what are some of the activities going on?
Sure. Walk America is really the culmination of 4 months of hard work, of fundraising, and it's a celebration day. And so we try to make that, especially here in Myrtle Beach. I don't know if these volunteers like to have fun in Myrtle Beach, and so the Myrtle Beach Walk is very exciting. They have games for the children. They have a children's corner. Typically the registration is at 8 o'clock. If people have not already turned their money in, they can turn it in the morning of Walk America. And then there's music, and there's announcements and awards and prizes, and then the walk actually starts at 9 o'clock, and people head 5 miles out and 5 miles back, and they come back for lunch and more celebration and festivities and a band and some tailgating, and usually we wrap up about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. But there's something for everybody. There's, it's a great way for corporations to get involved and to have their employees meet them there. It's a great celebration for them and a great day for them to have some camaraderie amongst each other. And it's also a wonderful day for our family teams, who are typically our ambassador families or anyone who's been directly touched by birth defects or prematurity, to come out and to really share what they've been doing and share their story. So it's a great family day, and we really encourage everybody to come out. And there's an easy way to get involved and to register for it and to learn more about it at www.walkamerica.org. It tells you all about the walk site and all about the fun that we're going to have here in Myrtle Beach.
Great, absolutely. And of course, locally, folks can call the 843-488-3463 number. You talked about one aspect there when you're talking to companies, and obviously the camaraderie out there at the walk day itself, as well as a lot of the events leading up to the walk, trying to raise funds internally so they'll have a lot to turn in walk day or the walk, the bank days leading up to it. What are some of the other things you talk to companies? I see some of the big sponsors for this year's Walk America, the April 30th event in Horry County, Bank of America, Wachovia, Blue Cross Blue Shield, I assume statewide, the local news, the Myrtle Beach Herald, and the Best of the Year. How do you get those folks juiced and remind them of some of the activities that will be going on, as well as some of the real benefits for their company?
I like to say it's customer service, that we make sure that we've built relationships and that they see benefit in it, because typically our Walk America walker is a female between the ages of 28 and 42, and those are the decision makers. I don't know if you know, but most women are the decision makers.
Oh, come on now, Kathy.
They do. They're the ones that are out buying the products, and so that is very attractive when you're talking about corporate sponsorship. That is very attractive to companies because that's their target market typically. Right. So it's not a hard sell, and the other thing is we have such wonderful corporate partners that really do see the benefit of partnering with an organization that is so well established and has such an incredible mission. What better mission could there be than making sure that babies are born healthy?
Kathy, you talked about that aspect of the camaraderie within the company, as well as the corporate benefits of the great exposure, and obviously touching the women, the predominant number of folks that are attending the walks. But also that, as you talk about the camaraderie, the benefits of within the employee base themselves of all working together with that common goal in mind.
What I enjoy the most is going around the state and talking to teams and talking to senior level management about a fun way and a fun event that they can get their employees involved in.
Yeah.
And, I had an opportunity to meet with a CEO the other day, and we were talking about something fun that he could do with his employees, and he's decided to allow employees to cut his tie. Every time they see him throughout the day, they have to pay $10 to cut his tie. And his goal was to make about $200 that day. Just something fun. It's different. It allows people to be in a different and unique setting and raising money for a great cause.
That's a great idea. How about some other stories you've heard out on the road, traveling around to some of the other teams? What are some other exciting things? Let's say, again, for a viewer who wants to get involved, either to introduce it to their company, someone who wants to have a chance, and, of course, for viewers who need to get off to work right now or get out of the house to get off to school, that web address, again, was what?
www.walkamerica.com.
Okay. And of course, the phone number 843-488-3463, and Joe and Colleen in the office, and so many of the other volunteers who come through that office to help out to make sure that Walker packets get out, as well as information about tonight's event or today's event, as well as the April 30th event. But some of the other wraparound activities leading up to the walk, what are some ways that a viewer could be involved to help get ready for the April 30th event if they're just learning about it for the first time?
Well, the first thing is, as you said, either call the office or log on to the website. They call the office. We have experts in Joe and Colleen, and they can certainly share with them a plan to get their fundraising started. Obviously, the first thing is asking your friends and neighbors and your dry cleaner and your veterinarian and your dentist to give you $10 or $20 and let them know why you're walking. Maybe there was a baby in your life, or your daughter's baby, or your son's baby, your grandchild that was preterm, or maybe even that baby was healthy. We need to walk for those healthy babies too, because that means that the March of Dimes was successful. So that's one way. It's just asking your friends and neighbors. And then the other way, if it's, you can have little wraparound events. Anything as small as guessing the number of jelly beans in a jar and you win a prize, to something as large as a vendor golf tournament, maybe inviting a company's vendors to be involved in a great day of golf, and all the contributions go to the March of Dimes. So there are lots of fun ways to get involved with Walk America, and it doesn't have to cost your company anything.
Good point. Absolutely. Like a CEO car wash.
Absolutely. Or the CEO could give up his favorite parking spot for a month or something and raffle that off.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Kathy. A lot of easy things, but of course, there's a lot of folks who may not be working anymore, who are retired in the area. They can still do just what you said, asking their dry cleaner, asking their grocer, or otherwise to chip in. And of course, are there minimum donations or, of course, maximum donations?
Absolutely not. We so appreciate every contribution that we get. Obviously, we do challenge our walkers to try to raise $200 if possible. We do have incentives on the local level. If they raise $100 or more, they receive the official Walk America T-shirt. But we do encourage our walkers to try to raise $200, but all contributions are appreciated and needed.
We talked to John only a little bit about that yesterday. We're talking about a number of other things, but for viewers who may not have caught his interview, share with them how the state board is set up, and are there boards in each individual community? And how the state board operates and interface. I know one of the key benefits is, I believe, the funds that are raised locally are able to be maintained locally. South Carolina is one of the few states where the dollars actually are monitored as they're reinvested. Am I correct on that?
Well, we have 5 divisions throughout our state, in
Right.
Greenville, Columbia, Rock Hill, Myrtle Beach, Charleston, and then we have satellite offices in Hilton Head and Greenwood.
Okay.
And last year the March of Dimes invested $3.9 million towards our mission.
Wow.
It's a lot.
That is.
Now, we do, because there's not much research that's done in our state, quite frankly, on prematurity and why babies are born too soon and too small. A good portion of our funding does go to other institutions throughout our nation that do more specific research. But all of that research benefits all those babies right here in Horry County, because without that research, we could possibly not save as many babies as what we're doing right now.
Without a NICU in Horry County, where do most of the premature babies go statewide? Are they coming down to Charleston or heading
Some do come to Charleston. Some do go to Florence, and it really depends on, I believe, the severity of the baby's prematurity.
So oftentimes there's such personal reasons for folks getting involved, and I know you talked about your sister just a couple weeks ago, and when you hear, some of the powerful stories, obviously, the ambassador babies in all the communities, whether it's here in Horry County or in Dillon or Marlboro or in Anderson or down in the Low Country, those aspects, when you think about those, I know you didn't bring any props with you, and obviously you're in town helping to promote tonight's event or the 4:30 event today at IMAX. Some of those aspects that that you think about or that have really hit home with you, Kathy, when you think about premature birth? Maybe you can share with the viewers real quick some of the life-threatening aspects that come along with prematurity.
Well, there are 7,700 babies born in our state yearly that are premature, and many of those will be born with lifelong birth defects. And 50% of that 7,700, we don't know why they were born premature, and quite frankly, one baby born too soon, too small is too many. And we need to fund more research and fund more programs so that we can make sure that 7,700 goes down next year. As I said, one baby born too soon is too many.
Oftentimes, some of the complications of premature births would be blindness, cerebral palsy. What are some other things?
There are an array of birth defects. Many have, mental developmental problems, physical problems.
Hearing loss. I know there's a heck of a lot.
There's so many.
That's right. I mean, it's just, it could go on indefinitely. That's right. There's so many complications. Of course, when we think about infant death or early death, I mean, there's the very high counts of death within the first month, the infant deaths there as well, or within the first year, as well as the absolute numbers of the folks that are born with birth defects in the first month and then even die within the first month. The numbers are staggering.
It is, and as I said to you earlier, just the devastation that those families feel. We could shoot numbers to everyone, but until you've experienced it or had a family member that had a baby that was born too soon or had a baby that was born with complications, those numbers mean nothing. But that one baby that you've had that experience with.
Over the last 15 months for you, Kathy, what do you think's been the most powerful aspect of coming back on board with the March of Dimes? What do you think's made this last 15 months the most worthwhile for you?
It's so rewarding to work with our incredible volunteers and to really see the energy and enthusiasm that each community brings to this mission, and also working with the ambassador families and hearing their stories. They are so courageous and so heroic, and to have the opportunity to work with them, and we have a fantastic staff, and so it's been an incredible experience to work with them as well.
That's wonderful. Thanks so much for those great words, and thanks for coming in for today's event.
Thank you.
I'm very excited, absolutely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Kathy Douglas coming up next. Volunteers of the March of Dimes imagine a day when no baby is born with a heart defect. Today, 94 babies will be born with a broken heart. March of Dimes volunteers imagine a day when no baby will be born and then immediately pass away. Today, 74 families will suffer that anguish of the loss of a child. Volunteers of the March of Dimes and folks like yourself, think about it. You may know a child whose due date was August 5th. She was born on May 9th. The impacts that affect a body prematurely born 3 months early can be devastating. They can devastate not only a family, they can devastate all the caregivers around and the child who goes through that for a heck of a long time. There's that aspect of these babies need hope, they need love, and they really need you. They need you and me to take the time to call the March of Dimes at 843-488-3463, to go online at walkamerica.org, or to get out to IMAX today, Broadway at the Beach in Myrtle Beach, 4 o'clock. The event kicks off at 4:30. Coach David Bennett will be there trying to drive home a message. He's been touched by the strength of the March of Dimes, getting out in the community to try to get folks involved to fight prematurity. Obviously, 50 years ago, Jonas Salk and others, the vaccine, obviously polio's impact on so many. We think about it in presidents, but you also think about it in the lives lost. Take the time to call the March of Dimes. Take the time to learn about Horry County's Walk America on April 30th, or in your community, in Laurinburg, or in Lumberton, or in Conway, or in Loris, 843-488-3463.